Chapter 1870 Demonic Eye. Before coming out, Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin had quickly planned everything for their aftermath. They know that a man is innocent unless he is in possession of a treasure. Once people knew that they had received the final gift from the Ihan people, even if they explained that it was a grand spiritual baptism and the truth of history, others would definitely have endless imaginations. For example, they believed that they had obtained a powerful sacrificial spirit or some super powerful modern weapon. By that time, people all over the world will want to take those good things from them. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin will never have a peaceful life from now on. So, they decided to go with the flow and put everything on Ichigo's head. Zhang Yi glared at Emperor Shi and gritted his teeth and said, "Emperor Shi, it seems that you were eliminated very quickly after entering the Light Gate. But at least you have been there before, so you should know the rules. Although the two of us made it to the final stage, we were all eliminated by Ichigo. That guy made it to the end and got everything." Zhang Yi's face had just the right expression of reluctance and anger. The more excited he is, the more real it will seem to others. Because that is the true response that the heart cannot accept when one is only one step away from the huge treasure. Zhang Yi clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and then looked at everyone coldly. "You better think about how to deal with that guy when he comes back." Having said that, Zhang Yi planned to take everyone away, as if he was afraid of Ichigo's impending revenge. Only Lord Ek, who confirmed from Zhang Yi that Ichigo had obtained the final inheritance, was so excited that he ignored everyone and laughed out loud on the spot. He originally possessed the strongest strength among this group of people. In a one-on-one fight, no one in the human camp could match him. What's more, his king, Ichigo, has a strength of 40,000 plus Black Bishop level without any restrictions. Therefore, he does not need to care about these humans at all. The hearts of Odin and the others sank. They stared coldly at the wildly grinning Loradek. They felt extremely heavy-hearted, but they did not dare to show too much naked killing intent. Because it is very likely that after Ichigo returns, they will also be liquidated. "I don't want to waste any more time with you. Leave this place quickly, otherwise, I'm afraid everyone will die." Zhang Yi left without any hesitation. By the time he recovers his body, with everything he has gained in the world behind the Light Gate, he will be terrifyingly powerful. However, suddenly, a voice sounded in Zhang Yi's ears. "Chaos, this isn't right." The man who spoke was wearing a black battle robe, tall and thin, but with a full beard. It was Saladin, the emperor of the Khotun Empire. Following his voice, many people looked towards him. Saladin stared at Zhang Yi and said slowly, "Remember the rules behind the Light Gate. If you are eliminated and teleported outside, you will be resurrected even if you die. Your physical injuries will also be healed." But he looked at Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. "Why do you have injuries on your body?" This statement also aroused suspicion among others. Those who can appear here are all powerful heroes, and no one is a fool. There was a hint of suspicion, and they couldn't allow Zhang Yi to leave like this. King Arthur also looked at Zhang Yi and said, "Chaos, tell us what happened later." Zhang Yi sneered, and suddenly his face turned red. He covered his face and started coughing violently. He gave Yang Xinxin a look, asking Yang Xinxin to help him explain the situation clearly. One lie often requires countless lies to make up for it. Zhang Yi wasn't sure his lies could fool everyone, so he left this matter to the meticulous Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin understood and said to everyone, "It is indeed the last level for the three of you to advance. The name of this level is Border Between Life and Death. In order to obtain the final person to pass the trial, the Ihan tribe also adopted the most stringent trial method. That is, those who die in this level will really die. In the previous level, we were all killed by Ichigo using the lethal weapons of his civilization. As a being of a higher civilization, he possessed too much technology that we could not understand." She was silent for a moment. Although there was still no expression on her face, her eyes were lowered with a hint of loneliness. "The final result is that we lost. Chaos is not a person who likes taking risks. When he cannot guarantee his own safety, he will choose to avoid danger first. No one present found any fault with this explanation. And the last sentence is consistent with everyone's understanding of Zhang Yi. He has always been a person who puts safety first, and he will never risk his life for anything. Yang Xinxin said casually, "Some things can be figured out with a little thinking. It's ridiculous that you are still questioning us too here." As she said this, her eyes swept over the few people who had just made difficult remarks. It is this kind of irony that makes Fong Fong seem frank. The inheritance of the god-level civilization will be left to the person who best meets their standards. Could it be that since both of you have come out and there is still one person inside, you have obtained the inheritance? Did you learn logic from your kindergarten teacher? After listening to Yang Xinxin's speech, Zhang Yi couldn't help but give her a thumbs up in his heart. Even he almost believed this.
Zhang Yi, ah?
It turns out that was really eliminated, and the relics of the Yihan tribe were not inherited by? Yes, is innocent. King Arthur touched his nose. Yang Xinxin's words made sense. She tapped into common-sense human thinking. However, no one except the two of them knew what happened in the world behind the light gate, and they could only judge with their common sense. Yang Xinxin also used common sense to deceive them. What's more, Ichigo really didn't show up. They probably never dreamed that at the last moment, Zhang Yi actually asked Ling to help him cancel the rules of resurrection from the dead. Zhang Yi glanced at them coldly, his voice as cold as frost. "Instead of wasting time arguing with you, you might as well think about how to save your life. When that guy appears in the world again, he will definitely become extremely powerful. By then, I'm afraid all of us will face a reckoning." Having said that, Zhang Yi turned around and looked at his people. They didn't know what was going on yet, and their faces were filled with worry. "Why?" Zhang Yi sighed. "Let's leave this troubled place as soon as possible." At this moment, no one continued to question Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. Seeing that he was seriously injured and looked lonely, she did not continue to stop him. Zhang Yi opened the dimensional door and planned to leave here as soon as possible. He went back to Shaohai City. The physical injury was not a problem. With Zhou Qi and Yang Xia around, the physical injury could be healed quickly. Zhang Yi give him enough time, and he will become extremely powerful. At this time, Alexei came over, looked at Zhang Yi with concern and said, "Han Dun, you are seriously injured. Let's send you to Samran City for treatment. There we have the most advanced medical team." Zhang Yi thanked Alexei for his kindness, sighed and said, "No, I don't dare to stay in this place for a quarter of an hour. Alexei, Fremons will become very dangerous in the future. If you feel something is wrong, you can come to Huashu country to find me at any time. Bring your family." Zhang Yi's face was still solemn. Alexei nodded seriously and watched Zhang Yi and others leave. Shortly after Zhang Yi left, he suddenly heard a deafening sound, as if a comet hit a planet coming from behind him. Zhang Yi turned around and saw a huge crack in the sky. The white light confronted the abyss of endless darkness, and the vast spiritual essence dissipated into the void. He saw 4 knights fighting, holding weapons, fighting against the Druk giant like gods. Their bodies slowly dissipated and turned into diffuse points of light. The body of Drucker was covered with scars, pierced by the weapons of the 4 horsemen. However, his violent attitude did not stop because of his serious injuries. Instead, he fought even more wildly. The dark giant Druk devoured everything around it like a black hole, making the entire land dim and invisible. What Zhang Yi saw could also be clearly seen by others. However, except Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, no one present knew what that thing was. They opened their mouths, feeling the collision of forces that seemed to be able to destroy the earth. It's like a war between God and the devil, and humans on the ground can prostrate themselves in worship. Zhang Yi swallowed his saliva, activated this space shuttle, without looking back, and rushed all the way to Huashu country. More than half an hour later, Zhang Yi returned to the land he was familiar with. Tanhai City. He is back. The shock in my heart took a long time to calm down, but they finally came back. Zhang Yi landed at the original site of the sea fortress. He gasped heavily and first released everyone from the shadow space. Then he took out the huge sea fortress from the alien space. Bang! With a slight sound, the extremely heavy mobile fortress landed on the ground. However, the fortress of the sea looked miserable and dilapidated at this time. The Ihan tribe is responsible for repairing human bodies, but not for repairing other things. After experiencing Yichigal's self-destructive attack, even the defensive building such as the sea fortress was almost destroyed. Seeing the appearance of the fortress, Fatty Su covered his head and exclaimed, "Oh, damn it. How did our house become so shabby? How can we live here?" Zhang Yi rubbed his brows. At this moment, the sky over Shanghai was azure blue, although the sunlight was dim and could not bring much warmth. But when the warm and furry sunlight shines on your body, you can feel the warmth and comfort from the bottom of your heart. They left Fremons, a dangerous place, although they didn't know what would happen in the future, and they didn't know what the appearance of the Druk giant meant. But at least now they are safe. If it breaks, it breaks. I'll have to rebuild it later anyway. Zhang Yi said to Fatty Su and others. Everyone felt sad when they saw the shelter, where the 3 people lived, was destroyed. Hearing Zhang Yi's words, they all looked at him curiously. Zhang Yi looked at Lu Karen standing beside him and said with a smile, "It's time for our shelter to undergo a thorough, brand new upgrade." Lu Karen looked at Zhang Yi. There were stars twinkling in her eyes, like stars adorning the entire night sky. She nodded vigorously. She gained a lot from this trip to Fremons. As a mechanical engineer, she has obtained a large amount of advanced technology from mechanical civilization. This is an enormous treasure for her. Even if the shelter was intact, she would tear it down and rebuild it. Combine the technology of mechanical civilization to create a new material and weapon system. By then, she will make Tianhai Fortress the world's first-class defensive force. No, the world's first-class offensive and defensive weapons. There were hundreds of people on the open space, including the Heavenly God squad brought by Deng Shintong and the Fueying force members under Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi said to Deng Shintong and Bailey Chongqing, "You stay here and prepare first. Stand by. No matter what force contacts you, ignore them and say that I said so. If there's anything, we'll talk about it tomorrow." After saying this, Zhang Yi brought a few of his trusted members to the Qingpu base. Uncle Yu, Fatty Su, Zhou Jaime, Mu Yan, and others stayed here to rest for a while. Afterwards, Zhang Yi took Zhou Kur, Yang Xia, Yang Xinxin, Lu Karen, and Huahua to a special place. Passing through the heavy snow, they came to an area near the northeast of Tianhai. This place is a very ordinary residential area in Tianhai, a few kilometers away from the center. Because the place is located in the north, it was not destroyed during the Tianhai War. The sky was covered with snow and wind, and it was unknown how thick the snow was. However, an area was cleared out in the snow pile, and a huge residential area stood there. Yuelu Community, where Zhang Yi's hometown is. Zhang Yi is a nostalgic person, and this house is the first house that belongs to him in his life. Today, it is worthless, but in the past, it was used to build his family business with the wealth of his parents. For a young person, it has extraordinary meaning. Many people don't know that Zhang Yi would occasionally come back here and sit quietly alone in his earliest safe house, enjoying the quiet and leisurely time. He is 29 years old now and will be 30 after the holiday. But during these 3 years, he had become a world-famous figure, enjoying the admiration and praise of countless people. However, all this was like a dream to him. If he goes back 3 years ago, his biggest dream is to marry a gentle and kind wife and live a comfortable life. It was fate that pushed him forward and forced him to become a famous figure in the world. In fact, many times, those so-called successful people are not born with extraordinary qualities. They are just ordinary people. It's just that fate made arrangements for them, and at a critical time point, they embarked on that unique path. Zhang Yi often comes back here. The room has everything, and even has normal heating. The kitchen cabinets are filled with various food and drinking water. Only when he returns here, lies on the sofa, and looks out the window at everything that has turned white because of the snow covering the whole world. Can he get a moment of happiness? However, this time, it is the first time that Zhang Yi brings other people back. There is no way. The reconstruction of Tianhai Fortress will take some time, so he has to come back temporarily to recover his physical condition. The reason why we didn't bring Uncle Yu and the others wasn't because of any conflicts. It was mainly because the house was too small to accommodate several people. Returning to Yuelu community again, Zhou Qir's eyes were full of memories. The memories of 3 years ago began to flood back to their minds. They had spent an unforgettable life here and had to consider survival every day. Zhang Yi took them directly to room 2402 and pushed the door open. After turning on the switches of the electronic equipment inside and heating up, the old-fashioned heating system from many years ago still worked very effectively. Zhang Yi then sat down on the sofa and let out a long breath. Zhou Kuo and Yang Xia came over and helped him take off his armor. Finally, Zhang Yi took off his upper body clothes, leaving only the black combat pants on his lower body. But when his clothes were taken off, Zhou Kuo and Yang Xia couldn't help but widen their eyes.
Ah.
Yang Xia covered her mouth, stood up suddenly, and looked at Zhang Yi's chest with her eyes shaking with shock. What's wrong? Zhang Yi opened his eyes and asked, "Is my injury serious?" He was aware of the injuries on his body, especially his ability of Sky Flash, which could instantly make his body reach the speed of light. Even if he used the power of space to protect his body and minimize the damage, he could not completely protect his body. However, the injuries on the alien's body are not difficult to heal. Hearing Yang Xia's shout, Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen looked over. Their eyes became very surprised. Zhou Qir hurriedly sat down next to Zhang Yi, put her right hand on his chest, and whispered while healing his wound. "What on earth is this?" "Zhang Yi, who left you with this injury?" Zhang Yi then lowered his head and looked over. When he saw the thing clearly, his eyes widened quickly, because he saw a black vortex on his chest. Like a monster's eye, it grew on the left side of his chest, near his heart. "What is this?" Zhang Yi took out medical alcohol and wiped it vigorously several times, but his skin turned red and the black mark was still there. No matter how hard Zhang Yi tried, he couldn't remember when this thing was printed on his body. Yatujier was dead. He was 100% sure of that. After all, even his energy was absorbed by Zhang Yi. A possibility suddenly emerged in his mind. If this mark was not left by the Yihan tribe, it was most likely left by the giant Druk in the underworld. All the memories in his mind were connected, and he suddenly remembered the few words spoken by the administrator and the 4 horsemen. After inheriting the legacy of the Yihan clan, you may face even more troublesome problems. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xinxin and asked, "Xinxin, go check if you have anything similar on you." Yang Xinxin nodded and walked into the next room. Soon she came out and nodded at Zhang Yi. "Brother, it looks like we've all been marked." She took a deep breath, and there was not much fear in her eyes, but rather some excitement that was eager to try. It must have been left by the Druckers. They can devour everything, but because of Kagawa's pursuit, they have to sustain their lives by constantly eating. So we who have inherited the power of the Yihan tribe have become delicacies in his eyes. Zhang Yi. He leaned back on the sofa, feeling a slight pain in his head. It turned out that he had just obtained the legacy of the Yihan tribe, which allowed his life level to evolve further. In the future, he might be able to become one of the most powerful creatures in the world and avoid the end of the disaster. But who could have thought that fortune and misfortune go hand in hand, and that because of this, he would be targeted by the most difficult creature in the world? This time, I'm afraid we're going to be in big trouble. Let's not talk about this for now. Kur, please help me with the treatment. No matter what, we must stay in the best condition to face any possible crisis. Lu Karen and others were standing by, listening to the conversation between Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, and were completely confused. Zhang Yixiao did not hide anything. While receiving treatment, she told them what happened in Tianyu Palace. But there was one part he didn't say, not because he didn't trust them, but out of protection for them. Zhang Yi knew how complicated that experience was. He was afraid that after the forces around the world knew that he and Yang Xinxin inherited the Yihan clan's heritage, they would try every means to snatch it from him. Even now, there will definitely be people asking him about the secrets that happened there. It's for their own good not to let them know that. Several people listened to Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin's narration with their mouths wide open, deeply shocked. After all, the truth of the universe, the meaning of the existence of this world, and the origin of the human species are enough to give them a huge shock. Lu Karen murmured in a low voice, "Humanity, where will it go in the end? If everything is arranged by the Supreme God, can we not avoid the fate of extinction?"
No.
"We will continue to exist and live a good life," Zhang Yi said firmly. "Kagago is just a combination of ether, and we ourselves are part of ether. We are also gods. Therefore, it is difficult for Kagagoro to completely eliminate us. This can be proved by the underground civilization that has survived to this day. The Druks have experienced countless destructions, and even the gods cannot exterminate them. This shows that we have a chance to change their fate of destruction."